And welcome back to episode, this is 4 or 3?
4. I think this is 4. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, welcome back to episode 4 of the Comics Run the World podcast. Obviously, I am your host, Orion Scott Comics, and as always, my co-host is...
Woody. How's it going, dude? How was your week?
Terrible. There's a lot of schoolwork. It's horrible. I'm like overwhelmed with everything.
Same, dude. We're recording this late because it's just been a lot. It's been a lot with school, work, and I've been busy, but
yeah,
we're here. We're here.
we always find time to make it happen, you know?
Yeah. It's important.
Yeah, I know. And the thing that makes it worse for my week, at least, I'm on my second replay of God of War Ragnarok right now. And I'm trying to 100% the game right now. And the last boss I have to do is the Queen Valkyrie, Gna.
Mm-hmm.
And it's terrible. I've been stuck on it for the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, I platinumed it and 100%ed it, but that was
really?
my first playthrough.
Oh, okay.
That's the other thing is that I've been like loaded with schoolwork, but I've been addicted to Hogwarts Legacy.
It looks addicting.
I've been playing it nonstop. I told you the other day, like I'm honestly more into Harry Potter than like even Marvel and DC. Like although there's obviously infinitely way less Harry Potter content to consume.
Yeah.
So, but I've always loved the world, and so I had a lot of fun with the game. It's a good time.
That's good. That's awesome. I wanted to get the game, but I have PS4, and yeah, I don't want my PS4 to explode or anything on me. So I'm just gonna wait till I get the PS5.
That's smart.
But to start off this podcast, obviously this is the part 2 of our basically discussion about Avengers Forever. We are discussing issues number 7 through 12 this episode. But before we get into all of that, there was a special trailer that came out during the Super Bowl that grabbed a lot of people's attention. It's safe to say it made everyone surprised on like the film itself, because there's been so much controversy behind this movie, not only with Ezra Miller, with whatever they were doing all of last year, but also goes back even further with the development of this movie. I think this movie went to like 7. Oh yeah, it's been like 7 directors. It was ridiculous. But we finally get a full-length trailer for The Flash, and I saw it at work. I was super hyped. But I want to start off with you. What do you think? What are your initial thoughts about the trailer?
I'm not as hyped as everybody, but my excitement level did go up. My excitement level was pretty close to 0. Mm-hmm. I was kind of like, but now, seeing Michael Keaton, seeing Ben Affleck, I like Ben Affleck's Batman a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm excited. I hope Ezra Miller. I've just never liked his Barry Allen. I've never liked his Flash. I hope maybe this movie, despite him in real life, changes that. I'm able to separate the art from the, whatever. Like if he puts in a good performance, and I'll be happy. So
definitely,
we'll see. I've seen a lot of people. There's this shot of Batman on a motorcycle, and people are like, "Is that Christian Bale?"
Oh my god, I did see that. I'm like, no, you're stretching. You're stretching a little bit.
You can see from the back, like the way the spikes are like shorter, like Ben Affleck.
Yeah,
like, it's very clearly not.
Yeah, it's like out of nowhere too. Where like I hear a lot of people saying like, all of a sudden this is like this rumor speculation that Christian Bale's Batman is going to be in The Flash, or it's going to be the new.
They're trying to Spider-Man No Way Home it.
Exactly. I'm like, nah, it doesn't work like that. But it could. I mean, who knows? But for me personally, I was super excited for this movie, even when it was announced, and even after all like this debacle, the controversy, all that. I was still pretty excited because it's not only was I excited for like the movie in and of itself, like the story's going to tell, but I was just very interested in the way how, like, because of all like the drama behind the scenes with like it being delayed for like 6 or 5 years. It was supposed to come out a really long time ago.
Yeah.
And I'm just interested to see, like, after all this pushback with the production, the multiple directors, the writers, the actors. So I'm just interested to see how it all plays out. And it kind of, ironically enough, this Flash movie is not only takes inspiration from the Flashpoint comics, but it kind of acts like the Flashpoint event in the sense of, like, originally the Flashpoint comic wasn't supposed to be an event-changing thing. It was originally supposed to be, just Flash storyline event thing, but it wasn't supposed to reset the DC continuity until like late and like towards the end of like the completion and the release of the comic book, where they decided, let's use this as a scapegoat to reboot the DC universe into the New 52. Kind of the same thing with the Flash movie, where it was been in production hell, and it's finally coming out, and then now James Gunn is rebooting, revamping everything. So they're also using that movie to reset and like revamp the universe. So I'm pretty excited. I saw a lot of elements from Flashpoint in it. I'm excited to see Kara in this, see what kind of role she plays. General Zod, super excited. Super excited he's coming back.
I forgot about that.
I know. I wonder if he's like the main villain, or like kind of like the main villain where like they promote him as a villain, but it's actually like someone else, probably like Reverse Flash or like something like that,
Just bring in Ezra Miller from real life. He can be the Reverse Flash.
Have them travel to the real or universe and like have the Flash look at Ezra Miller and what they've been doing. Like, oh my god, no way,
no way. Yeah.
Well, that'd be interesting. But overall, I'm excited to watch this movie. I'm interested to see how it plays out in the sense of a Flash movie and how it reboots the DC universe.
Yeah, I'm definitely more excited than I was initially. It's definitely I went from not really caring to like, I'll see this day one. I'm pumped to see it.
Absolutely. So with that being out of the way, it is time for our continuance on Avengers Forever issues 7 through 12. So do you want to get us started with Avengers Forever?
Yeah.
Let's see.
I'll give us a little quick summary of Avengers Forever 1 through 6. Because, it's no secret that me especially, I was lost when we were doing 1 through 6. I kind of thought about it after we recorded. It's happened to me a good bit with comics where I go into a comic and it's way different than I expected. Mm-hmm. And it's not that I don't like it. It's just that, like, this just recently happened to me with Spider-Man Life Story. I was...
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Really pumped to read it. And I was like, whoa, like, what is this? And I kind of set it down, and I'm going to, like, revisit it later. But, with this podcast, we can't set it down. We're reading it together. So
right.
I think it really... I just ended up just, reading it because we were going to read it together. And it definitely messed me a bit. But I went and reread 1 through 6, and I enjoyed it a lot more. I was able to, like, retain the information better. I had more of a grasp of what was going on. And yeah, so I'll give a quick little summary. So it starts with Jones Ricard destroying the city.
Classic.
With like his own little Avengers. And so shows us that. Then it goes to the present day. The Avengers are trying to save Rick Jones on the blue side of the moon when Immortus attacks with his army at the time. Kang's fighting him back. And then, they meet up with Libra, who's, this guy. We find out, especially in 7 through 12, he likes balance. Libra likes balance.
He has a balance fetish, to say the least.
And so the Avengers eventually go to Chronopolis. It's already under attack. Immortus is attacking Chronopolis. Kang is defending it. Eventually, Immortus wins, gets the Forever Crystal, which is what is able to not just make diverting time branches, but actually change the past itself, like, completely change time. So then once that happens, the Avengers escape. Kang does not. And then the Avengers, their new team, because they've got this new team that just basically spawned in. They don't know how it happened. We find out in 7 through 12, but it's, they're plucked from different eras of time, some from the past, some from the present, some from the future. And they end up going on 3 separate missions. And because they see like these, almost like from the Loki TV show, like these, events happening that are messing with time. So they go on these 3 separate missions. One's in the Wild West. One's in the distant future. That was by far the coolest with the old T'Challa. And then there's the other weird one with President Nixon. He's a Skrull. I don't know. They had that one. And then, they go on their adventures, and then eventually they're like, you know what? We're bringing the fight to Immortus, and we're going to Limbo. Don't think that was a good idea, but we'll find out.
It was an idea, though, to say the least. It was an idea.
It was an idea, and I'm glad they did it because it was cool seeing Limbo.
Yeah.
So we got a new little format. I'll talk about 7, 9, and 11, and then you'll talk about the other issues. So Let me pull up. Here we go. Yeah. So episode 7 starts with them taking the fight to Limbo. Like I said, that's how 6 ends, how 7 begins. They make Rick Jones stay behind because, he's kind of the point of all this. Immortus is trying to kill him. So, you stay back in, the time between time or whatever in the chronosphere. We'll go fight this guy. So as they travel to Limbo, this part threw me for a loop. They start seeing these chrono flashes, but they're like events from history, but they're different than what they remember. In one of them, Vision he's merging with the Human Torch, but they're like, wait, that's not the way it happened, or something. And they keep seeing other ones. They're either I think it's Hank Pym that says it. They're either events from the future or past, or they're events from a different timeline entirely. They don't know. So that's Limbo's a weird place. Weird stuff's happening as they're traveling there. Once they make it to Limbo, it's really cool. The way it's drawn is awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was my favorite part of the issue was just seeing Limbo and how it looks. It's so cool. But once they get there, they all they're talking, and then all of a sudden they all fall separately. It's Limbo working against them. So they're all in separate little areas being tortured by Limbo, essentially. Hawkeye lands, and he sees statues of his past, future, and present self. And then Tempest attacks him. Immortus's, right-hand guy, his goon. Cap runs into Nick Fury. Not really Nick Fury.
Oh, yeah.
But basically an illusion of Nick Fury. And Jan, the Wasp, is surrounded by a million different voices of Hank Pym. It's seemingly from all over time. And she's like, oh my God, overload with the voices. And then Songbird is met by a jury, and they're basically condemning her because in the past she was a villain, but in her current present, which is everybody else's future, she's an Avenger. And the the jury is her dad, her mom, and some other it's old teammates of hers, and they're condemning her for her her past transgressions of being a villain. And then we flash to Rick Jones, who's I'm tired of sitting around here, I'm going to help. The classic, he can't just sit there and just do what he's told. He's got to. So, what is the guy's name? I always forget his name. It's the Starry Sky guy. Is it Captain Marvel?
Yeah, it's Captain Marvel.
Okay,
yeah.
So Captain Marvel goes up to Songbird, and he's like, "This isn't real. This isn't real." And then he basically tells her that in his time they are lovers, and he kisses her. So I was like, okay. All right.
Fair enough.
Because those are two characters I don't know at all.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, all right. I guess that's what is happening. And then this part I really liked. It flashes back to Hawkeye, who's battling Tempest. Now, Hawkeye, under no circumstance, should be able to defeat Tempest, who's, a minion of Immortus, and he's shouldn't be able to. But Hawkeye's basically, he's like, I know that I've got a future, and he's like, everybody's always looking down on Hawkeye, but he's like, I got potential.
Yeah.
and he knows he's already got a future because he's from the past. So he's like, I know I survived. So he ends up besting Tempest, smashing him.
Mm-hmm.
I like that part because
Cool.
he's like, nobody ever believes in me, but He's like, I got potential. I could do this. So I like that. Fake Nick Fury tries to basically make Captain America give up. You know, he's like, just give it up, basically. Captain America, of course, resilient as ever, is like, no, and charges forward, you know, breaks the door with a shield. And then we find out that the fake Nick Fury, at least I think, was Libra. Because, like, it's the conversation happens, he smashes through the door, and then it shows Libra, and he's like, you know, it all must be balanced. So I think maybe it was Libra.
Maybe Libra has some influence with the illusions they were like witnessing to like basically like tip the scales to like for their success. Essentially, that's what I think, at least.
Yeah, we see him later, and he's basically like this guy in the shadows. He keeps saying like they're being watched, but I think he just like wants balance, no matter what, like which way. So, yeah, and then Yellow Jacket. Oh yeah, I forgot. Yellow Jacket. What he sees is like the future, and it's basically him becoming Hank Pym again. And he's like, I don't want to become Hank Pym. I like being, you know, this jerk. So he sees that, and then eventually he's able to some kind of way see where Immortus is at. He's like is up on top, and he's like gonna attack him. Which, what is he gonna do? You know, to Immortus in limbo, and that's literally what Immortus says. He's like, did you really think you could do anything to me in limbo? You know, where I'm. So he like encapsulates him in like this frozen thing, almost like Han Solo in Star Wars. He's just sitting there frozen. So then the Avengers, you know, they finally all come out of their spells or, you know, whatever. And I like that there's a moment where like Cap and Hawkeye are fighting. Eventually Immortus sends the Army of Time at him. They kind of seem like themselves, and even Hawkeye says it. He's like, oh, you seem like your old self. You know, they're kind of all coming back together, figuring things out. And so they all ditch, they all leave, because they said beforehand that if Immortus gets like the jump on them, that they're gonna head out. So they all leave. They leave Yellow Jacket behind. And the twist at the end is Yellow Jacket is like, you know what? I'm gonna betray the Avengers, because he's like, Immortus, if you can, I know you've got the Forever Crystal and you can change time. If you can get me in a timeline where I don't become Hank Pym again and I get the girl, then I'll help you defeat the Avengers. So we've got a betrayal. So yeah, I really enjoyed that issue. It's just a fun classic adventure into Limbo. Like I said, my favorite part was just seeing Limbo and the way it, you know, messed with all the Avengers. It was really cool.
Awesome. Cool. All right. So now we're on to issue number 8. To briefly tie back to something number 7, I do remember how like they're like seeing like this thing called the synchro staff in the past. How they're kind of making fun of it too, saying like how like it led the Avengers to victory. I forgot in like what context. I forget what it was, but they were kind of like poking fun at it, saying like a stick like led the Avengers to victory against like this like huge like villain or whatever. But then they actually get it, and like, it was like, I think it was Hawkeye. He like whips it out and was like, I have it.
Right at the end of the issue, like I think it's right before they show Yellow Jacket betray them. Hawkeye's like, you know what I found? I found the staff. So yeah, it's something at the beginning where it's when they're seeing those chrono flashes, and it's like Hulk, Thor, maybe, and they have this. I think it's Mantis is holding the staff. And someone tells them, they're like, "Oh yeah, the Avengers used to, you know, use this staff to defeat their villains." And I was like,
classic. Okay. So Hawkeye keeps like shaking it and bashing it, saying like, "Why isn't it working?" But another twist: the Synchro Staff is actually a space phantom. So that happens. And basically, they try to get information out of Space Phantom, and this is where the issue really takes a dive for me, because just this entire issue was super convoluted, and I was like, it was so dense with like information.
It's a lot of exposition.
Yeah, and a lot of tying from the past. Like, well, actually, Immortus was there all the time. He was influencing these events to, set the course of action to where we are right now. So basically, he goes on this huge spiel about the master plan of Immortus / the Timekeepers. I had a hard time summarizing it, so I went on like the Marvel fandom page and like grabbed the summary from there. So pretty much encapsulates what I was going to say. So basically, Immortus' role in Avengers history is revealed, including his splitting of the Human Torch into a second android that will become the Vision, as you said earlier before, and the revelation that the team's every interaction with Space Phantoms was at his behest. Chief among his Liberthan schemes, Immortus hoped to sow discord and confusion in an effort to keep the Avengers embroiled in earthbound conflicts and out of larger cosmic arenas. So basically, all in all, Immortus was trying to contain the Avengers on Earth because it's been said throughout the whole series how they believe that the human race is the most dangerous race of all because they overcome galactic, interstellar, like level threats with like I won't say with ease, but like compared to like other like different races of like out there in the universe,
Yeah.
they almost always defeat.
They always find a way.
Exactly. So that was basically the entire issue. It's just exposition after exposition. Huge, like different like shots from the past, from different for different storylines, showing how Immortus was behind these events, like with the Human Torch and the Vision aspects, and just all like the interactions from like the past. How it shows like Immortus was like basically the puppet master behind everything, and that was basically it.
Yeah,
for me at least.
I was reading it and I was kind of wondering, like, because I don't know, I like this is I don't really read a lot of stuff that's before the 90s. I read a couple 80s stuff, but I was like, I wonder like if this is like a retcon in any way, like all this, that's I had that thought in the back of my head while reading it. I don't know, but I
have that feeling too, or like they kind of use this as to retcon different things in the past, maybe. But I don't really read any like Avengers. I think this is my second or third Avengers story that I've ever read. That being the New Avengers and the Avengers from Jonathan Hickman. Those are the only ones I've read. But other than that, that's it. So I have no idea what all that stuff in the past, because everything being revealed was news to me. I was like, I didn't know this happened. So
yeah, I didn't know either. So my Hick Ventures omnibus arrives today.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's awesome, man. I'm jealous.
Pretty pumped about that. Yeah. So then we move on to the next episode, which also is a lot of exposition, but I liked it more than previous episode because it's all Kang, and I thought there was a lot of really good quotes in here, and also we got the Kang hype with Ant-Man. So
yeah.
This one it felt like a really long issue too.
Oh yeah.
I got a lot to say here. So it starts with Kang chilling because he just lost to Immortus. This basically takes place right after he loses to Immortus in Chronopolis when Immortus takes the Forever Crystal. And he's sitting there and he's like, I feel old and I feel tired. And I like that. He's just like sitting.
Yeah.
So he starts reminiscing basically, and that's this whole issue. It's very similar to the comic I reviewed a couple episodes back.
Yeah. I noticed that.
It goes through his history. This one was slightly different, so it made me think maybe the one I read, the more recent one, maybe retconned. But there was a lot of similarities to where I don't know if it did, but there were some differences. So, but it goes back. He reminisces to when he lives in the Age of Enlightenment, and he hated it because he wanted, just like the comic I already read, he wanted adventure. He wanted all the stuff from the old times. So he finds his time machine. He goes back as Ramatut, and we see him in his first appearance as Ramatut. He's got the Fantastic Four. So it also, I really liked this. This was kind of the main difference from the one that I read. It shows him, he goes back in time and he goes to Doctor Doom and he tricks him into thinking that they might be the same guy.
Yeah.
And it says that in like the narration bubble. He's like, yeah, I went back to trick him to think that maybe we're the same guy. I thought that was funny.
Kang gaslights Dr.
Yeah.
Doom.
Yeah, like it's just like showing all the stuff I already know. You know, he goes back, he becomes Ram Tut, and then it shows that. And I was like, wait, I really like that part. But here was a quote that I really liked. There was a lot of like really good Kang quotes here, I thought.
Oh yeah.
It was like, this basically describes all the comics we've read. It says, time. It was then that you first learned how chaotic time is and its divergent pathways could be. Like, yes, they are very chaotic.
To say the least, yeah.
So then it shows him after the whole Doctor Doom stuff, he tries to return home, but he overshoots it. He goes to this barbaric future, and he, you know, he's got all this technology, so he basically takes over, and that's kind of like when he becomes Kang the Conqueror. He, you know, leads these barbaric people to conquest, and he takes over everything. He conquers. But then he thinks, and he's like, you know, I've conquered this, but this was a barbaric future, you know, it was easy. I want to conquer a flourishing Earth, you know, like an Earth that's actually thriving. So he goes back to battle with the Avengers, and then it shows him like in the present day, and he's kind of just reminiscing on his obsession with the Avengers, how he could never really best them, you know. So then he this was really cool. It shows him basically in just another classic battle with the Avengers, and he's hit by Thor's hammer, and it hits him into limbo. I don't know how, but it does. So it hits him into limbo, and he goes there and he sees a dead Immortus. Like it's an Immortus, but it's got a, you know, skeleton.
Yeah.
And he used his devices to go back in time, like not his devices, but Immortus's devices, since he's already dead, to go back in time and save Ravana. You know, the woman he loves. It's one woman he loves. But when he does it, he realizes he creates a divergent timeline. And in this divergent timeline, he's created a bunch of realities and a bunch of different Kangs. And that's where we get the Council of Kangs. It's pretty cool. I have that first issue.
That's true, yeah.
So I read that. I was like, oh, cool. Then I took out my issue, looked at it. But he basically, he reminisces on how he's like, he kind of admires the other Kangs, and he talks about some of their feats and some of the stuff that they've done. But he's like, you know what? In the end, I've got to kill them all. He decides that he has to, that they're too big of a threat, even though that they really interest him, because he's like, some of them have done things that I never have. But he's like, they're still a threat. I got to eliminate them. Right. So he even kind of dupes the Avengers to help him take out some of these other Councils of Kangs, which I thought was cool. It shows like Namor there, some other Avengers. But then he himself gets duped by basically Ravana. She was working with Immortus the whole time. He wasn't actually dead. It was a trick. Skeleton was fake.
Classic.
And then this is when it gets wild. Then it shows, you know, since Immortus duped him, he starts fighting Immortus, and he takes this orb from him. And it kind of reminded me of like Indiana Jones, where like, it was almost like too much knowledge for him, and it drives him crazy. So he uses this last-ditch effort in his helmet to almost like a time divergence, but it's a him divergence. Yeah. And it takes half of him to Limbo, where he, or not Limbo, but Chronopolis, where he kind of like regroups. And then the other half kind of just stays around. And then the other half stumbles into the Cross-Time Kangs, not the Council of Kangs, the Cross-Time Kangs. The way they were drawn, they kind of looked like primates, like monkey Kangs.
Yeah, that's why I thought they're like underdeveloped, or like just like just different versions of like Kangs, like probably not like unevolutionized versions of Kangs. That's what I got
Yeah.
from it.
Yeah, he said they were like imitations. He said that at some
Mm.
point. And that that since he split, that second split is eventually defeated by the Cross-Time Kangs. That's what he said. It doesn't show it happen. So I think they defeated him. And then this part was cool. It just shows him in some classic, because it's still reminiscing, kind of going through his history. It shows him in a classic fight with the Fantastic Four, and he's like, I will return Human Torch, or he says something like that. And then it shows him, and he's like, actually, I couldn't muster up the energy. I was tired. I didn't want to. So he doesn't go back and fight them. And then he's, while he's tired, he's like, this all feels predestined, and it almost feels like he's transforming into a Mortis, because then he starts turning his attention to governing his empire, not even conquest. So it's like he's becoming a Mortis. And then he ends up going like back and trying to do more conquest, trying to battle. And he says, not because I wanted to, but because it was something to do, which I thought was interesting. Right. He basically was like, I don't even want to do this anymore. I can't even muster up the energy.
Yeah.
But it's just something to do. So in one of those fights, he's fighting whoever, and Thor's hammer is thrown, and he jumps in front of it to save Ravonna. Ravonna's there. And he's like dying, and Ravonna is like trying to save him. And because, she's like, oh my God, you saved me. Because, they're back and forth. Will they, won't they? I don't know. So eventually, this was my favorite part of the issue. It shows him, because he's eventually saved, whatever. But it shows him as Ramatut, just like really reminiscing. And he says, everything I have ever done, the worlds I've conquered, the empires I've built, it all seems so meaningless. It was all fated. I had accomplished nothing because I never had a choice. What good is it to rule if you were not your own master? Which I was like, wow, that's really deep, Kang. Like that's So in that moment, he's like, you know what? I'm gonna go to Limbo and accept. I'm just gonna become a Mortis. It is what it is, basically. So he goes, but then he sees one of those chrono flashes, and he sees a Mortis with the timekeepers, and it's a Mortis saying, I will do your bidding. And then he's like, what? That basically just contradicts what he just said. He's like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing someone's bidding. I'm my own master. So he's like, nah, screw it. So he leaves. So in order to stop from becoming a Mortis, he starts studying him, which is, classic. Obviously, in that case, he's just going to become a Mortis. It's just the whole thing's a loop.
Yeah.
So then it flashes to the present day. And what I thought was interesting, I didn't really know, but when a Mortis defeats Kang in like the Avengers 1 through 6, Avengers Forever 1 through 6, I think it was, issue 3 or something, and he destroys Chronopolis, he basically kills everyone there, including Ravonna, except for Kang. So everyone dies except for Kang. He's able to, escape. And then so he's standing there in like the present day, which is always tough to say with Kang. What's the present day? But with the defeated Chronopolis, and he's like, now what? Basically, you've regained your passion to fight, but you have no means of getting to a Mortis. You have no way to actually. And then in a moment, he's transferred to the blue side of the moon with the Supreme Intelligence and Rick Jones. And Rick Jones is basically like, the Avengers have been defeated, whatever. And he's like, we're going to take on Immortus. And Kang's like, all right, let's do it.
Yeah. All right. I mean, that was, out of the two very dense exposition issues, the Kang one, that was obviously like the better one, the most interesting one. But yeah. So episode 10 of Avengers Forever, we got the Avengers waking up from them being captured. They go outside and they're met by the Galactic Avenger Battalion, led by none other than Jones Ricard. Classic guy.
Jones Ricard.
So they're standing there saying like, what's going on, because there's a huge armor out there. The thing is, I think Captain Marvel says it, that they don't see them as the Avengers. They're seeing them as like the Guardians of the Galaxy, essentially. And not the Guardians of the Galaxy that we know right now. Gamora, Drax, Groot, Rocket, Star-Lord. It's not them. It's the classic original Guardians of the Galaxy with Yondu and 4 other people how I don't know their names.
One of them's got Cap Shield.
Yeah, it was like a hologram thing of like Cap Shield. So I thought it was cool, honestly.
Yeah.
So obviously, fighting ensues, and the Avengers are yet again captured. They're captured, but the Yellow Jacket comes to set them free, along with the Mortis. The Avengers don't know that. The Yellow Jacket team up with the Mortis, so when they see Yellow Jacket, they're like, "Oh my god, finally, we're rescued!" But then he was like, "Yeah, I'm taking you with the Mortis, you know." And they're like, "How can you do such a thing? How dare you?" But then again, I can't really be surprised because he is who he is in the comic.
Yeah.
And they are brought before the Timekeepers. So basically, the Timekeepers say how like the last king of like the end of time, he who remains, created the Timekeepers to keep all of time balanced and in check, essentially. Kind of like in Loki.
Yeah. Exactly like Loki. One thing I got confused on is I'm pretty sure they're separate. He who remains and Immortus, they're different people, right? I mean, at least in the way like Immortus and Kang are different. Like
I think that's why I thought too. I was thinking like, are they like the same people? But I think they're 2 different entities, because I feel like if they were the same people, they would still refer him as Immortus, so he who remains.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's what I gathered.
So they're saying the Timekeepers are saying how human race too dangerous to be kept around, so we're gonna have to eliminate basically the human race. And they go on this huge spiel how like there's no other race that bested Galactus, the Celestials, and this future threat that is yet to happen called the Infinities, essentially. I don't know what that is. So it could be like the Beyonders, maybe. I don't know. But they're like going on this spiel how the human race always triumph over everything, no matter how big the odds are against them. So obviously the Avengers are getting like pretty mad. So, like, why are we just like getting eliminated? And then they're just saying like, if there's like an infinite amount of timelines, or like, have you seen so many different timelines where the humans conquer? Like, what's the percentage between the ones who remain just and truthful versus the ones who turn corrupt and evil, essentially go and conquerors, essentially. The thing is, the Timekeepers, they plan on eliminating the human race due to the 42% possibility of the human. So basically, there's 42% of the timelines are damaged by humanity, and that's if the 42 possibilities, and so they're obviously pissed off. So like, you like eliminate the entire human race for all the timelines on a possibility.
Yeah, that's a.
So I'm like, I mean, yeah, you got a point on a possibility. So yet again, fighting ensues, and since like they're the Avengers, the Timekeepers, the Destiny Force gets activated somehow. Still don't know how that thing works. But it's on. It's activated, and they try to attack the Timekeepers. And towards the end of the issue, as how you just ended your issue on, we are greeted by Rick Jones, Kang, and the Supreme Intelligence in this really big mechanized, like 3-wheeled like motorcycle thing, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Completely
the way they
out.
enter, the way they enter is it's like something out of a movie, you know, like a like Thor's entrance in Thor Ragnarok or something,
right.
Or like when he gets all the lightning, and it reminded me of that. It's pretty badass.
Kang standing on top of the thing with the two guns in his hands. I thought it was a great way to end the issue. But we finally get like the true villain behind everything. It's kind of like how we predicted in issues 1 through 6.
We did.
So we're kind of already experts at this. We ourselves know everything that's about to happen. We're kind of like the timekeepers of King themselves.
We essentially are the timekeepers.
But we get revealed the real villain, the real motivation behind everything, and we're ending on almost not really a cliffhanger, but like more like a push to like pique your interest and like what's gonna happen next. So
this one starts how that one ends. It's Kang and the Supreme Intelligence and Rick Jones coming in. They need some intro music or something. But the big reveal of this, also this issue and the next, is when I really started to. I was like, okay, I really like this story.
Yeah.
These next two, I think, really, because also they're way simpler. It's like the Avengers are trying to stop the Timekeepers, and they're battling. That's what I like out of my comics. I want almost like a nice little popcorn flick, like a good
right.
I'm that's kind of my favorite stuff. So, but the big reveal that I thought was interesting is that we find out that it's Libra who brought all these Avengers together through time. It was him who picked them, and he even says, he's like, when I picked them, I didn't know why I picked them. He could feel the balance, which
balance
I guess is fair, because he says, he's like, if I wouldn't have picked these particular ones with these particular personalities, it wouldn't have worked out this way, which is true, because, Yellow Jacket doing what he did, and, Cap's resilient, but he was going through a tough time, and it was able to, I was like, yeah, you're right. You did pick the right ones. Good job, Libra. Good balance there.
I loved how they did it too. How he uses like each individual Avengers flaws as like a domino effect for everything. So like how this Avengers got this Avenger who leads on to who might do this, another Avenger might pick up, and like it's like a whole thing, like a domino effect of like their personalities like rubbing on against each other essentially, and like how like that would affect the course of like their dynamic as a team and their attempt to stop whatever's going on. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, there's a page where it has like a panel of each of them, and I think it's like narration bubble from him, and it says how basically where they started at, where they ended up at, and why they were a good pick. And I really like that part, because it was true. It was a very random team, but by the end of it, I really liked this Avengers team. They were fun. I always like new stuff in comics. Like, my favorites of Ultimate Spider-Man, it's very new. I love when stuff's changed up. Something's, it's new, it's fresh. So
yeah, I
like that about this. And especially, it did feel like they had purpose to be there. They weren't just thrown together for thrown together's sake. They did feel like they each had a purpose in the story. So, with Rick Jones and Kang and Supreme Intelligence coming, eventually Immortus and the Timekeepers just vanish. Just, in the snap, they retreat. And then this is in, I think, issue 7, but when Yellow Jacket, this is just proving our point, like they were all chosen for a reason. When Yellow Jacket was in limbo, he was able to control these basically like limbo bugs. And he was like, don't worry, some of them are on Immortus, and we can track those little bugs that are attached onto Immortus to wherever they're going. So like, okay. So they track him to the end of time, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
They're at all the way at the end of time. And it's, it's fitting for this comic. Something to do with time. So they track him to the end of time. They battle. The Timekeepers are trying to eliminate the Avengers. And they're like, Immortus, do it. Like, eliminate him. And Immortus at that point is like, no, like, I'm not. There must be another way to do it without eliminating the Avengers, because there's been a couple times throughout this series where he's even said, like, you know, he doesn't really hate the Avengers. I forget exactly what he says, but
He respects him in
Yeah.
a sense.
he says it a couple times throughout here. It's sprinkled throughout here. So he's like, you know, there must be another way without sacrificing them. And like, it shows him, he goes to say something else, and then it does that dash, and it's interrupted because they just incinerate him. They just like, before he can even say another sentence, they incinerate him. And the part that was funny is Kang's like, "Did I just watch my death? Did I just watch myself die?" So then the timekeepers are trying to calibrate this chrono cannon. I kind of just saw that as, you know, they need to stall the Avengers, whatever, and the comic has to keep going. I don't know what the chrono cannon does, what it's for, but we got. It's
gonna appear out of nowhere. It's like, that's a thing. Like, oh,
yeah.
Cool.
So I didn't really get all that, but it didn't matter because the next thing they do is so damn cool.
Mm-hmm.
They use the Forever Crystal to bring every evil Avenger from every Avenger that has gone bad throughout every timeline ever. They summon them basically with the Forever Crystal, to basically stall the Avengers while they build this chrono cannon, whatever they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so cool. Like, it's just 2-page spread of all these like evil Avengers. I was like, I was like cool. Looking at the page like, dude, that was
it was badass. It was so badass.
That was so cool. So then our Avengers, this team, starts battling them. And of course, you know, to even the odds, like you were saying earlier, that energy, you know, whatever it's called, they get infused with it to basically even the odds. They're able to fight all these Avengers with that energy. There's another part I liked where the Supreme Intelligence is like, "What say you, Libra?" And Libra's like, he's like, "You know, I always fight for balance." And he's like, "But I am human." And he's like, if I'm gonna, he's like, if I'm gonna tilt the balance in one way, I'm gonna tilt it the right way. And so he just starts doing like karate on these these like evil Avengers. I was like, all right, hell yeah. So yeah, they borrow power from Rick Jones or whatever to even the tide. And then this is another thing. Don't really know exactly what happened. All I know is timekeepers, they see Libra and they know he's important because he's, you know, balanced or whatever. They like levitate him, they zap him, and the zap hits Rick Jones, and then like bam, time is stopped. That's you know, I can't explain it any further than that. But so everything is frozen but Kang. Also, when they're frozen, they're able to see and talk. They just can't move. So everything's frozen but Kang. And the timekeepers are like, "We're going to accelerate your destiny and turn you into a Mortis right now." It's like super painful. Like, you can see like Kang starts bleeding. It's like excruciating pain.
Yeah.
They're accelerating him to become Mortis. And then Captain Marvel, he basically, even though they're frozen, he's able to budge a little bit and like explodes. And then it's revealed, I guess this is the reason he's been being weird the whole time. He is Rick Jones, an older Rick Jones.
Dun, dun, dun.
Is that what it was? I really didn't know. I think he's
I think so.
Okay, because Rick Jones is like, "What? You're me?"
Yeah.
And he's
I think so, yeah.
He's got long hair. He like doesn't have an arm or something. He's got weird feet.
He's a worn, torn Rick Jones.
So yeah, that's why I think throughout this whole thing, Captain Marvel's been being weird. Everybody's like, you know, what's up with him? I guess that's what it was. He was hiding the fact that he is Rick Jones. And they've also alluded to it, I think. They said that they were in some way, I think they said in like issue 1 or 2 that they're some way connected. So
yeah.
Then the ending, which like, dude, I wanted to like stand up and cheer. The old Rick Jones and the current Rick Jones are like, we got to use our Destiny Force together. And they do. And then they summon with their Destiny Force every good Avenger from every timeline. So it's basically, you see this this one's just one page, but it's like every Avenger from every good timeline. There's this one specific character I really wanted to know who it was. It was like this Daredevil looking character, but they almost looked evil, but obviously they're good.
Mm-hmm.
It's in like the bottom left, and that's how it ends. Yeah, they say every good Avenger who is, was, or will be good across all of the timelines. So it's all the evil Avengers from every timeline against all the. So
that was awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's basically a war of infinity versus infinity. So it's crazy,
dude. Once we start talking about Ant-Man, I have something about this. Don't let me forget it about. So
okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So the epic conclusion, episode 12 of Avengers Forever, the epic battle between the future heroes and the evil ones. Good versus evil, classic. So as they're battling, they're all battling, and then we cut to the transformation of Kang, who was sheer willpower and restless nerve to win. He comes out of the transformation, and Timekeeper's like, "What? How is this possible?" So they start panicking essentially, and they try to activate the chrono cannon, but Rick Jones basically absorbs all the Destiny Force that he expelled or whatever. He absorbs it all up, goes in the cannon, and then basically just blows himself up with all the Destiny Force. This part I really liked. This is my favorite Kang part. So the Timekeepers are left vulnerable. Kang just walks up to them with his two guns and starts unloading. he starts unloading his guns onto him, and he said something that. Oh, yeah, here it is. So he unloads onto the Timekeepers, and he says, "Consider that, gentlemen, and give my regards to hell." So he starts. So he starts firing on the Timekeepers, and then he stands on this little mound of bodies, and he's like this. And he says, "Kang conquers. Kang is victorious."
Dude, yeah.
And the Timekeepers are no more. That was my favorite part.
That shot, that specific shot of him was my favorite drawing of the whole comic.
That was like my favorite part of the comic period. Honestly,
really,
that was great. So, Captain America gets a hold of the Forever Crystal. He sees all these different possibilities of what he can do with it, but he ends up just destroying it, which doesn't really destroy it. It just gets sent somewhere else, in time or something like that. Obviously, Kang's pissed off. He's like, "Why would you do that? All that power is to destroy it." And Captain America gets this whole spiel about being true and just and all that stuff.
Boy Scout.
Yeah. But oddly enough, when Kang got out of that, it basically escaped his transformation, what we see in the comic book is Kang and like a morph of Immortus. Basically, he kind of just rips that off and it's still Kang, but that little pile of Kang is just there, but it kind of grows into Immortus. So it starts off with Immortus as a kid, but then he slowly, quickly ages up into an adult by the end of the page. And now Kang's realizing that the Timekeepers are gone. There's no Immortus, but because that Immortus is doing something else, so my future is unwritten. I don't have a future already set in stone. So basically, he says I wonder what kind of worlds I can conquer now. What can I do now? Because I'm free. Because it's what you said, how he already was he was already kind of down, saying how all my future is already predestined. Everything's already written, so there's not really a point. Now he has a future. He can do whatever he wants. He doesn't worry about fate or whatever. So he does that and basically just goes away.
That part reminded me of the recent comic I read, the one that I said, it's basically a history of him. At the very end, it's kind of like that because the whole thing is basically a loop, and at the end it shows, the young Nathaniel Richards steals his armor and thinks that he ditches him in that time period, but he's like, "You idiot, I have more." And then it shows him, it's now reminded me of that. It's It's basically giving Kang a future that's unwritten, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was nice, and I guess from like the future comic books on from this forward, we see like different like Kang material, but Kang disappears. Captain Marvel fuses with Rick Jones, and basically the Libra sends the Avengers back to their respective timelines, and they're all basically forgetting all like whatever happened, like a dream essentially. Because like the more you try to remember a dream, the less you remember of it. So it's kind of treated like that. They go back to their separate ways, and then at the end, the epilogue it reveals that the Supreme Intelligence has hold of the Forever Crystal. Personally, I thought the ending, especially with like the Avengers going back to their respective like timelines, I felt like it was a little rushed or like just like kind of like sped up essentially. Yeah. That was my comment only gripe, but that was Avengers Forever issues 1 through 12. You watched both episodes, coincided. But overall, what did you think of Avengers Forever as a whole?
Overall, like I said, first time I read it, it just kind of wasn't what I expected. I didn't really retain it all. I didn't really enjoy it, to be honest. But, you know, like I said, I reread 1 through 6, and then I read 7 through 12. I definitely prefer the arc in 7 through 12. I think it's a really great story. There's a quote that Dan Slott retweeted recently that I really agree with, that there's a difference between something being bad and something being not for you, you know?
Yeah.
And I think in a sense that's this comic for me. It's not really my thing, but at the same time, first of all, that's one of my favorite things about this podcast. It'll get me to get out of my comfort zone and read different stuff.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this comic had so many awesome moments. We had future bearded T'Challa ripping the skull and spinal cord out of an alien. We had the evil Avengers from all of time versus the good Avengers from all of time. Like you said, that moment where Kang, he's lifting his arms up after shooting the timekeepers with his guns, and the whole issue in Limbo. There's a lot of really great moments in here. I think it's bogged down a little bit by being a little too over convoluted for its own good, but overall, it's a really fun story that I enjoyed.
Yeah. I mean, basically what you said, there's a lot of great moments in this comic book, especially Kang moments. Whenever Kang is on like the page, it makes everything like a lot better.
I agree.
Like, he has great monologue. He just has like he's just a great character in the story overall.
Dude, not to interrupt, but there's this. It's when Rick Jones, Supreme Intelligence, and Kang, when Kang's like quickly transported to the blue side of the moon. Rick Jones like, we got to go help him. There's this part I loved where Rick Jones is like, puts his hand on him, and he's like, we got to go help him. And he's like, the hand. He's like, the hand. Take it off, Rick. He like slaps it off. So yeah, you just reminded me of that with like the monologues, the way he talks. He does make the comment.
Yeah, it's great. There were a lot of aspects where I liked. I loved when they went to different time periods where they went to the future, they went to the past, they went to the Nixon timeline, which was probably the worst one among all of them. But I loved when they went to the Wild West. That was my personal favorite one. Probably because I'm playing Red Dead 2 right now. So,
oh, dude, that's one of my favorite games of all time.
Yeah, I'm playing it right now, so I'm kind of like on like a Wild West like hitch. I'm like, oh, it's great. But I really liked it. I wouldn't read it a second time personally because whenever it comes to like really dense, convoluted, exposition heavy comic books, it kind of like turns me off. And
it feels like
it feels like a chore essentially. Like issues, what was it? Issues 7 through 8, 7 and 8. It's just like exposition, explaining
both
everything. I was like, as much as I love the Kang one, it just wasn't for me. I didn't like how like it's so heavy with dialogue. But honestly, if I saw it on a collected edition, I would probably get it just to have it. It's definitely one of those comic books because whenever I read a comic book on digitally, I have this rule where like if I like it enough, then I'll buy the physical copy of it. So if I saw this somewhere, I would definitely buy it just to have a lot of great moments, a lot of great character moments from individual Avengers. You see how they progress as a team throughout the whole story, and they're kind of like they're different Avengers because you usually see like the typical like Avengers lineup, but these are like all different, all new.
Yeah.
They're unique in their own way. There's like basically two of the same characters. Hank Pym. There's two Hank Pyms, but they're so different. They're so separated, which makes everything so interesting. Plus, with the dynamics between the two Hank Pyms as well as Janet Van Dyne, that adds a lot of like tension around everything. So I like that a lot. But overall, I enjoyed it. Definitely, I wouldn't reread it. Probably not as of right now, but maybe down the line.
Yeah, I think I would down the line. Not anytime soon, but maybe when we're getting closer to Kang Dynasty or something. I don't know. Maybe eventually I'll reread this.
Yeah, definitely. The thing I liked and were like it kind of piques my interest, like how much like the MCU borrowed from this storyline alone, with like the Timekeepers, with Loki, He Who Remains, the Avengers going to 3 different timelines or 3 different time periods, trying to like collect wherever they need to collect, just like an Endgame.
Yep, it'll be interesting if they take more inspiration from this with the future Kang stuff in the MCU. I don't know.
Yeah, I just like that a lot. But overall, for a Kang comic book, I would highly recommend it for you guys to read. As for an Avengers or some general Marvel, I still recommend it. But if you have like the patience for exposition heavy time travel convolutions, this is for you.
Yeah, I would also say I would recommend it to anyone, but I would be like, it's convoluted. It's a lot sometimes, but overall, I think you will enjoy it if you're just a fan of Avengers or Marvel Comics in general.
Absolutely. If you guys have already read Avengers Forever, let us know how you liked it. Because we both liked it. It was a pretty decent storyline.
Yep.
We're interested how many more elements the MCU pulls from this and implements it into the future of the multiverse saga, as it's titled now.
I know we're about to talk about Ant-Man because neither of us have seen it yet, right?
I'm seeing it tonight.
Okay, good, perfect. I'll see it Sunday, and today is Thursday, so we'll be seeing it pretty soon here. I've got a good way to transition us. One thing
Awesome.
I don't think we'll ever see from the MCU's Kang that we did see here is Kang being a hero in a sense. He's
right
pretty much throughout this Avengers Forever run series. Besides, when he's reminiscing on his past, that issue that's a little exposition. Besides that, he's pretty much a hero the whole time. I don't think we'll ever see that because I don't think, comics have they have so many stories they can do, and there's so much more you can do in comics than you can do in movies. And he's only going to have, after I would say Secret Wars at the latest, he's going to be gone.
Right.
So they've only got so much time to do Kang stories. I don't think we ever see him as a hero like in here. Do you think we ever do? Or
I feel like I'm theorizing here, because there's like a whole theory with like Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. There's a theory that's going around how like Doctor Doom is gonna kill or overthrow Kang, absorb the powers of the Beyonders as he does in the comic book version of Secret Wars. So I feel like if Doctor Doom doesn't kill Kang, or if he does kill Kang, they probably pull like another King from a different timeline to have Kang on their side to overthrow Doom, because Kang's whole thing is like to conquer timelines. And if he sees Doctor Doom on this high throne, like across all the multiverse. I feel like that's motivation enough for Kang to team up with the Avengers because
Okay.
he's not like this like stern, strict villain.
Yeah.
Like as normal like typical villains are. He's very flexible. Like, it depends if his interests are aligned with like others, he'll work with them. But
I agree.
It's
Yeah.
it's kind of like hit or miss. But maybe a hero thing, but I don't think so. It's the
And
MCU, so
I say hero, but like I mean what you said, like his interests align with the Avengers and he sides with them. Not really
Yeah.
like a full blown hero. He never really is
Yeah.
a full blown hero, but
it just depends on the circumstance, I guess.
but I don't know. They currently like, and I read that Timeless, and that's a current comic. And a lot of the time, I think with current comics that are coming out now, they try and some way not tie it into the movies, but
pull influence, I
mirror
guess.
things. And it looks like he's gonna be more of a hero in that one. So you never know. They could.
That's true. As for Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, because that's what we all the stories we read in last episode and continuing on to this episode, all leads up to Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, because this is King's first on-screen appearance as King the Conqueror and Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. I heard there are mixed reviews with the movie.
It's the second Marvel movie to ever get rotten on Rotten Tomatoes. Not that I don't care about reviews, but it is interesting.
Yeah, because like it's kind of weird because a lot of people would use Rotten Tomatoes, saying like how like, oh yeah, this movie's like, and an example for Marvel versus DC, they show different DC movies, like yeah, they're like the critics don't like it because it has a Rotten Tomatoes score, but when like a Marvel movie has like a low or like a Rotten Tomatoes score, people say like, oh no, Rotten Tomatoes is unreliable, you can't really rely on it. So it's kind of like a back and forth.
I never rely on them.
Yeah,
ever.
I don't really pay attention to like what other people review. I watch reviews, but I watch the reviews, how they felt about it, and put it into perspective of how I feel about the movie, because all in all, what matters is your own opinion.
Yeah.
Don't let other people influence on what you like, dislike, whatever. They shouldn't really be that butthurt if you like something that they don't like.
Yeah,
or like vice versa.
It's stupid, If you like something, it just like it. It doesn't matter if nobody else does.
Exactly. But the one thing that's like universal is like Kang, Jonathan Majors kills it in this movie. He's menacing, threatening. A lot of people say he's already surpassed the level of threat, like how threatening he is in this movie. Already surpasses Thanos, which holding off a little bit because this is the first appearance of Kang in MCU, and it's in an Ant-Man movie, so I guess we'll see. What are you interested, after all the things we discussed about Kang, his different storylines, what are you interested to see either teased in Ant-Man or shown in Ant-Man? How that could lead to more of the events happening in the MCU later down on the line?
Like I said earlier, I really like change. I like new stuff. It's one of the reasons I already said Ultimate Spider-Man. It's one of the reasons I love Tom Holland's trilogy. It's very different. So I hope, and it already looks that way because he's in the quantum realm. I don't know of any comics where Kang is in the quantum realm. It's the first time we're going to be seeing him. So, is the quantum realm Chronopolis? I kind of hope so. I just hope to see a fresh take on Kang that's it both respects his history in the comics. I hope he stays true to his character, but I hope we just see a story that we've never seen from him. We see something completely new, something completely different. I don't really have any specific hopes for the movie. I don't have anything I'm like looking forward to specifically. I'm excited that this Ant-Man movie is almost like an event. Like there's with these MCU movies, there's certain movies that I don't even see as movies. They're almost like events. Like, for example, Captain America Civil War. I don't really see it as a Captain America movie. I see it as like an
Right.
event movie.
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Man No Way Home, I see it as like an event movie. And then this movie, it's an Ant-Man movie. He's the main character, but I see this as this is setting up this next everything up until Secret Wars. It kind of starts here. So I'm hoping that not only is it an enjoyable movie, but it sets up the characters well. I hope Kang's the most important thing, I think, in this movie. So
Definitely.
I just hope and I have full faith that he'll be great, and maybe the movie won't be great. I don't know, but I just hope that we see a great setup, and I just hope it's enjoyable.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Even when this movie was announced, I was only excited to see Kang on the big screen. That's like, I guess for a lot of people, that's like their main drive to see Kang, because they have a lot of shoes to fill. They have huge shoes to fill right after the Infinity Saga. A lot of people are complaining how like the Marvel stuff isn't what it used to be, which I get, but they still have to. They still have to do the same thing. You can't just jump right into like the multiverse saga. So
I can't even get into that. It would take another 4 hours. That we'll have an episode of that on its own. But I don't agree with that point of view. But go ahead.
Everything takes time to set up. People will complain either way. You take time to set up. People are going to complain it's taking way too long. A lot of it's unnecessary. When you jump right into it, people say that you rushed it too much. It's bad, not developed enough. So you can't really please everyone. Yeah. So as for Kang, I just hope he's good. I'm not worried about how comic accurate he is personality-wise, because the suit was top-notch. But just like his like the way he like that one like panel from at the end of the con where Kang says Kang conquers. He's like that boastful conqueror essentially. I hope that's somewhat implicated, but if it's not, totally fine. If they go a completely different route from comic Kang to live action Kang, I'm all up for it as long as it's good. Like you said, I'm up for change. I like change. I like different things interpreted in their own unique ways. As long as it's good,
I agree 100%. I don't personally care about comic accuracy. I think as long as the character, their comic version is respected, and you can see, that not that they're the same with the same motivations, but the essence of their character is the same. That's all I really care about. I'm with you 100%.
Totally. This is being recorded the 16th, so I'm watching it tonight. Super excited. Interested to see what is going on with like how it sets up. I'm excited to see the post-credit scene.
It's getting leaked. Watch out!
I know. This is like the first. This is the first superhero movie since like Doctor Strange, the first one, that I haven't gotten spoiled on, in some regards.
Really?
Because like I get spoiled on everything, especially with like me being on TikTok, people or either just like messing around, trolling, showing screenshots, or like they're just like oblivious to the fact that like they're showing a spoiler and no one wants to really see that, especially nowadays with like I guess like the culture of everything. Example: Spider-Man No Way Home. The leaked pictures of like Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield there was posted everywhere, and
that was unmissable.
Yeah, you couldn't be actually surprised. You still cheer for them at the movie theater, but you don't really like surprised. Like, oh my god, they actually did that. I guess like the only thing is with Daredevil, because like when I saw it, it was only like rumor speculation that Daredevil was gonna be in it, and when I saw it, I was like, oh my god, it actually is Daredevil there. So that was cool. But this is like the first time I haven't been spoiled for a comic book movie in a really long time. So. Yeah.
That's good.
Fingers crossed. Knock on wood.
Don't open TikTok. Don't open. You can't open it for the rest of the day.
I know. Knowing me, I probably open it like unconsciously, and I just like boom, a spoiler. I'm like,
that happened to me. Luckily, it was like the very beginning of the clip. I didn't see anything, but it was, and I'm not opening TikTok. Well, I might open it to post something, but I'm not going to open it and scroll through anything until I see it.
Yeah.
But I'll end kind of the whole. I had this idea. Obviously, it's a joke, but what if in either Kang Dynasty or Secret Wars, one of these movies, we see like in Avengers Forever, they bring all the good Avengers and all the evil Avengers, and what if it's all of the good Avengers? You know, Ben Affleck's Daredevil. Who else? Like Nicolas Cage's. Yeah. Nicolas Cage's Ghost Rider. All these characters. Chris Evans' Human Torch, and then the evil Avengers is just Bully Maguire. it's all of them
all against
versus
one.
just Bully Maguire. He's. I don't know why I had that thought while reading Avengers Forever. I was thinking of all the good versus all the evil, and I was thinking of all the evil Avengers they could do, and I thought of him, and I was like, no, just him. All of them versus him.
If Marvel's listening, the writers for Kang Dynasty, Secret Wars listening. If you guys come up with the idea, make sure you put us in the cut in the movie.
Yeah. Dude, if the MCU did a version of that from Avengers Forever, of all the good Avengers versus all the evil, that would be every like TikTokers of that just get hype over cameos dream. But I'm for it. I like me some cameos, you know, they're fun. But I don't know why that popped in my head, but I had to share it.
It's a good idea, though. It's a good idea, nonetheless. But that wraps up today's episode. Obviously, go check our previous episode where we cover more Kang comics in the first half of Avengers Forever. If you guys, at the time of this recording, Quantumania is already released. So just let us know on Twitter or on TikTok what you guys thought about the movie. Woody, where can they find you on the world of the internet?
You can follow. I've been posting some TikToks to our TikTok account, which is Comics RTW. That's like the @ and then stream on Twitch at Woody307, and then our Twitter is also Comics RTW. So yeah.
Yep. Awesome. And you guys can follow me on TikTok and Instagram as Orion Scott Comics, and on Twitter Orion Scott Comic, no S at the end. With that being said, any final thoughts? Any final statements or anything?
I'm excited to go. I'll see it Sunday, and then we'll record on Monday the next episode. And I'm excited to talk about the movie with you once you've seen it. I'm pumped.
Absolutely, I'm excited. I'm pumped. All right, and with that being said, guys, take it easy, and just remember that comics run the world. All right.